What a sad state of affairs of the world that we all live in. It's 2023, and over the last few years, especially the last 2 to 3 years, there has been an increasing development across the world on global front to take away as much as power as possible from the people who constitute the majority of the population of planet Earth, who fundamentally do not have power to begin with. But still, yet it is being taken away through various kinds of restrictions, through various kinds of forced actions against the population, through punishing them in any way or form if they are non-compliant. And this is just the beginning. There are certain institutions that have dedicated themselves to conquer the world. Alexander the Great might be dead, but his desire for being the global leader and the one who conquered all land on earth, that spirit is not dead. Alexander the Great might have waged 1,000 wars in his lifetime. But today, you see, we don't need to wage a war because the world has become from kingdoms to countries. And every country has their own constitution and laws. And most of the constitution is directed towards protecting the well-being of that particular nation and all of its people and all of its resources, and so on and so on. So if Alexander the Great is probably alive today, not sure why he's called great, but if Alexander lives today and if he wants to conquer every single country, there's no way that is going to be possible. However, an organization like United Nations, which is fundamentally a group of all of the nations of the planet Earth who have come together under one single roof, and each country is represented by one ambassador. Now, whether this person is bought or sold, there's absolutely no idea. And this person is not even the elected representative of the particular country. You elect your representatives, and they in turn select an ambassador, and this ambassador goes and attends all of the meetings of the United Nations and this and that of various different things. There are many different ambassadors for various different projects. So one way Alexander could take over the entire world today is by simply through corruption, through force, which is not a war but other means, and through promises of anything in return. And hence, when something like COVID-19 was created and released and spread across the world, every government across the world simply succumbed to this centralized, globalized force, and they started taking orders from one single organization. No questions were being asked about the origins, about the legitimacy, about the science. This is what we know, this is what you need to propagate in your country. And the government takes this, it asks its media organizations to propagate that thing. Whether the science is true or false, no one cares. Whether the virus is real or not, no one knows. Whether the virus is really deadly or practically it's a very weak form of virus, we don't know. Yet all of the controls were dictated by one central organization, which is not part of any country, which is a collective of all of the nations on a global level. Now, this particular organization, you can say whatever it is that you want, whether like this is run by the elites, or this is the Rockefellers, or Rothschilds, or JP Morgans, or whoever it could be, or there are other people on top of these guys whom again we do not know. We do not even know who our enemy is, and it is 2023. We have internet, when we have access to all of our wealth, all of the information, but we do not know who our enemy is. And mind you, the word is being used as an enemy because it is these organizations' topmost interest to not empower you. It is to suppress you, it is to make you weak, it is to make you controllable. And when you are no longer required, it is to be in a position to execute you as well. You are not of any prime interest, your well-being is not of any prime interest, your bloodline is definitely not of any interest. The world is moving closer and closer towards non-diversification, not promoting diversity. Everything needs to be controlled and organized, and chaos is no longer the part of the next equation that they're trying to create for the world. Amidst all of these things that has happened within the last few years, it should have given you a great insight of what is happening on planet Earth. It really should have. But however, if you did not get that particular insight, there are one or two reasons. Maybe you are a very strong believer that everyone who are out there in the government and the rest of the things, they're all here to empower humanity in a big way. Or maybe you do not know how many incidents and events have been manipulated in the past to suit themselves, but not you. Information can be massively controlled, events can be staged. So if Alexander the Great conqueror, Alexander the Great dreamer lived today and he wanted to conquer the entire world, no matter what comes, if a billion people's blood has to be shed, let it be shed. cannot be possible for him today. But however, a centralized organization like United Nations, the World Economic Forum, who are all, again, they're still puppets. They're not the prime leaders, because the leaders are never truly explored. We don't know who's running the world. We don't know if it's the Jews, or if it's the Christians, or if it's the Muslims, or someone else, or the reptilians, if those things even really do exist in the first place. So what is a revolution? A revolution is simply a transformation of something that is not happening like the way it should be. So to transform something that is not how it is supposed to be into something of how it is supposed to be, that process is a revolution. There were many revolutions before, industrial revolutions, a revolution of knowledge, a revolution of communication, a revolution of technologies, a revolution of democracy, justice revolutions, military revolutions, so many. Gandhi's non-violence was also a revolution. Bhagat Singh's gonna shoot you if you come and destroy my country was also a revolution. Both were revolutionaries. One person chose non-violence and one person chose an eye for an eye. Not violence, chose eye for an eye. That is a revolution. And today, why is revolution even required? You might say, my life is perfect as it is. There's a home, there's a bed to sleep on, there's water that comes out of the taps, we can buy all the food from the nearest stores, and there's money that is readily available at all times to exchange my money for goods that is required. There are roadways that are already built. There are all these technologies that is in support, which enables us communication and information. There are schools that are established. So everything here, but what is the need for a revolution? If you paid attention to the beginning of the speech, it was told to you that over the last few years there have been a surge of shift in power. When democracies came, the power shifted from the people to the government. But now the power is being shifted from the governments to the global front. And behind the global front, there are secret organizations. And it has come to a point where they're repeatedly showing again and again and again that they no longer care about you or your existence. It's not 1900s, it's not 1923. In 1923, humans were still required to do a lot of work, to run the machines, to run the factories, to sit and calculate, to move goods, everything. It's 2023. Humans are almost not required right now. The AI has come, the robots have come, the industrial technologies of anything related to electronics and semiconductors and extreme machine learning, they're all here. So what role do you play? You don't even need, you're not even required we are not even required to do any kind of jobs. And in the near future, let's say in another 10 years or 20 years down the road, practically be not required for the society to run by itself. We won't be required. The robots are so advanced, and you mix those robots with the AI technology, we have given birth to something very, very, very powerful. The planes can fly themselves, the cars can drive themselves. So, what is the need and role for human beings? The elites, the ones who own the maximum wealth in this world, who have control over maximum amount of resources in this world, they rule the world. Money is king, a demonic king, but still a king. Money rules everything. You can control people with money, you can get things done with money, and they are the ones who have maximum wealth accumulated for themselves, and they are the ones who decide on what happens on planet Earth. And if they decide that 7.8 billion or 8 billion of the population sitting and consuming all of the natural resources of planet Earth is a threat to their existence, and they want majority of the idiots and unintelligent beings to be eradicated, they're not even coming and putting a gun on your head, but you are going and giving your arm for them to put things into you. That's how stupid the human civilization has become today. Survival of the fittest. All those who took vaccination in hopes that they're going to be better are fundamentally stupid people. All those people who took a vaccination because they had no other choice, they had to keep their work or they had to be part of the society, are those people who are living out of fear. All those people who were forced in being inoculated with these chemical drugs, vaccinations which comes with hundreds of other chemicals that the government has failed to establish very clearly what is in them or what is not in them. Feel very sorry for you guys. There are a lot of people, especially on the rural side, the village side, where authorities went and dominated, intimidated, and held people by the collar and hair and forcefully inoculated them with these synthetic vaccinations. That is the reality of the situation of the world that we live in now. So very soon you won't be required. You should almost see it coming. Maybe they have a lot of information that we don't really have access to. It's highly possible they have a better understanding of what is this planet Earth, what is this life, where exactly are we, is any of these things even real, or is it a massive simulation? if the world is the world round or is the earth flat? Is there anything beyond the Antarctica, as it's being claimed in many of the conspiracy theories? But all of these things apart, what is the real revolution that is required today as we live? And what is this whole concept of Saturdays for revolution? Why was it even started? If you ask me fundamentally, can you please give me your entire mind map as to all of the things that you think is necessary in order to create a human utopia, an absolute best of the best worlds? Sure, we can talk. We can map it all out as to there are only these specific number of problems. As long as we can sort out this specific number of problems, we can create a utopia. We can bring back the heaven on this earth that once used to be. Sure, it can be done, but what is the highest of priority right now? What is actually required? What is the most fundamental revolution that this planet deserves? We can name a few things. Let us stop wasting the resources, planetary resources. Let us stop harming our planetary beings. Let us eradicate this entire plastic pollution that is happening, that is simply destroying most of our valuable resources like rivers and oceans. That is almost irreversible, these damages. You can of course create a revolution about stop using chemical fertilizers and other things that can destroy the soil and food and other animals and beings and human health. That's a very important revolution. We can bring back plants as medicines, as against these chemical drugs that are manufactured in a factory, which cause more damage both to the environment and also to human health. That is another revolution. There are so many revolutions that needs to be imposed almost by us, because you cannot expect the governments to create a revolution. Cannot. Because if Vikasa is in power, there will be revolution happening every week from the government side. But unfortunately, Vikasa is not in power, and it's the fools who run the show, and they're not interested in transforming the human sphere, transforming the nation, transforming the planet, or transforming an individual. It's not of their interest. They do not want to clean up the educational sector simply because of this, because they would rather have a dummy who can be used as a slave as against a billion population who knows how to think and how to live. And the ones who know how to think and how to live can never be controlled. So it's not in the interest of democratic structures to have an elite education. So what is the most important revolution that is required now, and why Saturdays for revolution? Because let me give this very easy understanding to you. We still live in a world where everything is controlled by money, and there are very few people who know how to detach themselves from money completely, how to disassociate themselves from money completely. And these are some of the real babas and sadhus and spiritually very heightened masters and philosophers who know how to live a minimalistic living. The rest of the people still need money, and in order for them to get the money, they need to work. And if not everyone can dedicate their entire life to being a revolutionary, there are only two kinds of people who are possibly capable enough of doing that. One who's very self-sustained by their family, and the other person is a mad fool, someone like me, to dedicate the entire life for revolutions and revolutions to come, and take consistent actions towards making these things happen. But the world at large are not in a position to be actively involved in any form of revolution whatsoever, because they have to go and earn and build their family and build their wealth, and they're constantly in that trap of financial empowerment. Fine, we have clothes now, let's make a home. Fine, we have home now, let's fill it with 1,000 different things. Fine, we have comfort now, let's think about luxury. Fine, we have luxury now, let's go and see the world. Fine, we have seen the world enough now, let's make generational wealth the wealth that can last for our generations to come, for our bloodline. So they're in a financial trap, most of the people. On the contrary, if all of the people do not join the revolution, there will never be a change. But we live in such a stringent world that the moment we start making any kind of communities or unions towards these things, the government has enough mechanisms to disrupt it. And the government, especially their friends who are all billionaires, whose businesses might be threatened because of these few thinking members of a particular community who are dreaming of a revolution, they have enough mechanisms, power and network at play to disrupt. So the entire population has to join in order for a revolution to occur. Now think about this. India got independence, and how many millions of people actually moved on the streets to do that? It took few leaders to get all of these population in mobility, but it's the masses which shackled the belief system of the British colonizers and made them rethink about what plans they had for India, and called it quits and went back home. It took the masses, not 1, 2, 3, 4 or a group of individuals to scare them away. These guys were highly capable, but 10 people cannot go out and shoot 100,000 Britishers who were living in India at that point of time. But when 100 million people got on the streets showing non-cooperation, they finally understood that this is a population not to be messed with, and they left. And once they left India, they left from many of the other places also. In certain countries, it was a good agreement that they put in place, and in some other countries, they have that absolute autonomous freedom. So it takes the masses to move an idea into manifestation. especially when the forces against this idea are very, very strong. But today, we do not have time. Everyone has an excuse. So, the simple solution that we must all come to an agreement is you can work from Monday to Friday, 5 days of the week for your family and your life and your future and yourself, whatever. Sundays, you need the rest. You need to relax, you need to go meet your social circles, you need to enjoy. ठीक है, चलो. But can't one day of the week be dedicated to something that is either not yourself or your family, but to the world at large, to the communities at large, to what you believe at large. And even if you don't believe it, it's your duty to protect the world. It is your duty to protect the planet. It is your duty to uplift your nation. It is your duty to revive your own communities. It is your duty to create a sacred home for yourself. The duty and responsibility lies in your hand for what is to come on planet Earth next. So hence, at the very least, if you cannot be a full-time revolutionary force, can't you think of dedicating yourself at least one day of the week for the planet, for the earth, for the future, for all of mankind? And you are not supposed to expect anything in return for yourself. Not the name, not the fame, not the money, but do it because it must be done. Do it because it must be done. Whatever revolution that you desire, whatever sufferings you see in the world can be eradicated by you. If you think old people are actually not being looked after in the way that they're supposed to, so it is your duty to take that suffering that you now have and to convert that negativity into a positive solution by establishing an old age home. If you think the dogs that are in the street are not being fed well enough, it is your duty to take care of that, because only you and you alone are capable of feeling that suffering. Do not hide away from suffering. Suffering tells you something. Your pain tells you something. Of course, it all stems out from the unconsciousness. But as a person who can disassociate from that particular pain, you can now choose to convert that negative force that is impacting you into a positive transformation that is going to bring more content to your heart than anything possibly ever can. So whatever it is that is bothering you, you must learn to identify these problems. Note it down. Plan it out. Take small steps of actions. First step that is always supposed to be taken is the step that can be taken by you in order to solve that problem. The second step of that particular solution should always be those immediate circles around you. And the third thing is, what must the society do in order to solve this problem forever and for good? And not just do it on this particular Saturday, but when the next Saturday comes, you're going back into your plan. You're going back to your chart. You're going back to executing where you left off. Consistency is the only thing that can bring you success. Great success. You can do some things once and you can think that you can be successful, but no, it was just one single line of event. But consistency, on the other hand, plays a crucial role in long-term revolutions. There are short-term and mid-length revolutions as well. But the kind of revolutions that is required for planet Earth in order for an absolute utopia that is possible to be created and manifested on planet Earth needs long-term consistent efforts from the masses of this population. So that is the reason why Saturdays for Revolution is a very, very important thing. It can happen here in Bangalore. It can also happen in Mumbai. It can also happen in Kolkata. It can also happen in Chennai. It can also happen in India. It can also happen in America. Each country has its own set of diverse problems. Africa there is some kind of a problem. Europe has a different kind of problem. Australia has some other problem. Papua New Guinea has a different set of problems. But if all of the activists unite and take action, and the masses can join on that one particular day, which is a Saturday, now you are going to change the power structure on planet Earth. People will be more tuned, people will be more in control, and people will take more responsibility of creating the future of our planet Earth. So that is Saturdays for Revolution. And maybe by the time the next Saturday comes again, you can at least identify all of the problems that is felt only by you, maybe a lot of others too, but there's no unity between you and the other person who feels the exact same suffering. You might join a page on Facebook or a newsletter of a particular website, but where is the action that is so essential for solving that particular problem? And most importantly, where is the consistency? Sure, you'll clean up some existing trash place outside your society on 1 week, but when there is no consistency and when the problem repeats again and again and you show a lack of disinterest, you have given up. The matrix has gotten you at this point of time. Consistency is the key, and to solve that particular problem with a united spirit of like-minded people who are all fundamentally flawed at feeling this particular pain because they have something called either an imagination or a compassion. The problems of the mind and the problems of the heart. So, if not revolution as a full-time activity, the masses should definitely join in. And it is the job of an individual enlightened being who knows something about a particular problem and a solution to educate everyone else about this thing so that it can be solved. It can be solved as problem completely on one locality can become the blueprint for it to be executed globally. If someone figures out a way of how to clean the ocean in Italy, that same model can now become a blueprint to cleaning up the seashores for every other place. Someone can figure out how to solve the waste management crisis at one country, the same thing can become a blueprint for everyone. So it's not just the job of the governments to take care of the planet Earth. We should take the power back. The power always and always must lie with the people. The moment you give your power away after casting your vote to your government, who takes money from every single one of you and who's sitting on top of billions and billions and billions and even maybe trillions of dollars of the entire GDP, and who have the entire executive force, the police, the army under their control, that's a game that is already lost. Democracy, though it has its good advantages, has resulted in almost the worst forms of democracy to be installed. There's a good form of democracy, there's a bad form of democracy, and what we are all experiencing is definitely a bad version of democracy. So this bad version of democracy that has taken over the entire world, we have already lost the war on that front. Now what is happening is we are losing out on all the governments, and the entire power structure is now getting accumulated on a globalized front. And these are no longer your elected representatives, it is simply those people who are cunning enough to have accumulated wealth that is beyond anyone's imagination, access to resources that are beyond anyone's capabilities. So they have begun to rule the world, and nations almost no longer play any role in the next version of human existence on planet Earth. Everything is changing. So maybe this was a brief introduction of my psychological suffering, of what is the problem that is ongoing on planet Earth, and to introduce my sufferings to you so that you can also think about this particular thing. And if you do agree that what is being told by me actually makes sense, and if you have belief that is strong enough to think about this particular things and join and create communities of yourself and your tribe and your people, and this is globalized across the world, we can start to create utopia. And if anyone told you that utopia is a false concept, it can never be created, it's a stupid way of imagining the world, you are not artistic enough to think of the world being in a perfect order. It's not perfectionism. We are far from being perfect. It's the dangers of what is already done and what we are currently doing that puts a threat to this entire human existence and also of the planet Earth. Now you can raise a very important question in your heart and ask, but Vikasa, why should we get involved in all of these things? Sure, good question. All that is being asked of you is to act the way when you see your house is lit and burning on fire. If your house is on fire, what would you do? That must be the exact same thing that must be done now, because the world is on fire. The forces of destruction are really well organized, and the forces of the good people are completely divided, not in unity. So it's the same age-old mythological war about the good and the evil on planet Earth that is still ongoing today. So with that being said, this was a brief introduction to my sufferings for believing in utopia, for believing in a perfect Gaia, for living in a harmonious world, for believing in people becoming the best versions of themselves and communities becoming the best versions of any human society that can ever be, to believing in everything should be clean and pristine. We have created a dirty country. Look at it. We've created a dirtier world. Look at it. And we haven't even begun to care for anything other than ourselves and our family and our friends. So it's time to change that. Let's talk about how to create a better planet. Not sure if it's possible to save this planet or the human civilization or to create the utopia, but it is definitely worth having a conversation about. So if all things go right, Saturdays for Revolution, where activists across the world, or being activists for very specific causes, can now create communities across the world and take control locally within the place where they exist and show examples of transformation for the rest of the world. And we can all collectively start taking the power back from these maniacs and start protecting what we have, which is the greatest gift of the gods, and create a suffering-free world at large. That would be the best thing to do. Create a suffering-free world. Take care of yourself, but also take care of others. Build a good home for yourself. Also, once you have your good home, build a home for someone who doesn't have a home, out of pure compassion. Exercise that. And with that, my friends, this is the first of many broadcasts to come. In the near future, where Saturdays for Revolution is going to be lifted off. This is just the initial discourse of introducing you guys to my suffering. And now that it is introduced and you have a better idea of what Saturdays for Revolution is and where is this dire need for all the actions that needs to be taken, we can think about how to organize ourselves. And of course, it'll be my duty to execute this project and give the technologies that are required in order to create momentum. And it is also your duty, if you have said skills that can help me to bring and build this technology, to help me out of your pure compassion so that collectively we can take efforts in creating a suffering-free world. May the revolutionary spirit always live on. Saturdays for Revolution, Shanivar Ka Kranti. Thank you. Yours lovingly, Vikasa.